Okay, guys, we are back to finish section 7 in the notes. Tonight you have 3 documents to do. They are in the 1930s documents PDF, and that you guys are doing document 7, document 5, and then the second number 7. Um, I think that is it for the calendar. You should also be working on Review Guide Unit 4. That's what we're trying to finish this week. Okay, let's get started on Section 7. So, like we started last time, we have a new president now. We have a new approach to the Great Depression, and our new president is Franklin Delano Roosevelt. So, let's get a little bit more background on him and how he really changed how we approach the Great Depression. So, as you saw in the video from last time, FDR was diagnosed with polio in 1921. So, this was way before he becomes president. And at this time, there was no treatment for polio. But he didn't let this hold him back at all. In fact, a lot of people didn't even realize how bad the polio actually was. He presented himself as standing at the podium when he would address the nation. Uh, he is known as a reformer. Remember, we said he was the governor of New York, where really all of the cameras were turned when the Great Depression began and when the stock market crashed. And because of how he handled what New York was going through during the Great Depression, he gets this reputation of being a reformer. In New York, he passes the Temporary Emergency Relief Administration, which at at the level of being governor, aim to find jobs for the unemployed in his state. So he really showed before he even became president, this is how I would handle the nation because this is how I handled my state. He believed that the government should be active in trying to recover the economy at this time. Hands off was not going to fix the problem. The government needed to be involved, hands on, and taking care of the people. His inauguration, which you read the other night, it would be broadcast on the radio. This is going to be something that FDR becomes infamous for. He will speak directly to the nation. Homes around the country had radios in them during this time, and that was a way for him to speak directly to the people. And he would use that to inspire the United States to say, we are going to survive. He would encourage the people to stay positive and not let this break them. FDR is going to take a trial and error approach to the Depression. We had not seen this before. There was no handbook for him to follow to say, this is what you start with, this has been successful in the past. No, he had to create everything from scratch and move forward. So he says we have to try. He says if it fails, admit it frankly and try another. But above all, try something. He's telling the country we can't just lay down. We have to try something. If it doesn't work, that's fine. Pick yourself up, try something else, learn from the mistakes, and keep going. FDR is going to realize that he cannot do this by himself. It is not a democratic initiative to fix the country in the Great Depression. No, it is going to take brains from both sides, both parties, and whoever is the expert in the field is who is going to serve in his cabinet. So he's going to nominate Republicans and Democrats in his cabinet. He is going to nominate the first woman to his cabinet, Frances Perkins, as his Secretary of Labor. He says whoever is best at doing the job is who gets the job. Eleanor Roosevelt, his wife, is going to also interact with this process of pulling the country out of the Depression. She is going to be his eyes and ears on the ground with the people. She will interact with the average everyday people, get feedback, and help to advise her husband on what was working, what's not working, how do we change and evolve and get better. The first 100 days of FDR's presidency are the most, and I say this knowing the presidencies of the past all the way up to the future, they are the most productive first 100 days in the history of the United States. No one has done more than what FDR did in his first 100 days. He is swift, he acts quickly, and he is precise with every piece of legislation that he passes. In those first 100 days, he passes 15 different bills that create programs for the United States focused on providing relief, recovery, and reform. I would underline these three R's because they are what each piece of legislation, each program fits into. We want to relieve the current problem and prevent future depressions from happening. So we are not just looking at what's right in front of us. We are looking at down the road as well to make sure we never end up in this same place again. So where do we start? We start with the biggest problem. And the biggest problem at the moment are the banks. So, on his first day in the office, FDR is going to pass the Emergency Banking Relief Act. And what this does is declare a bank holiday. Essentially, he closed all of the banks in the United States because the biggest problem we were facing is that banks were failing. How does a bank fail? People panic. When people panic and think that the bank does not have their money, they run to the bank to take all of their money out. The problem being, like we talked about the other day, is that banks don't keep everybody's money on hand in tangible currency. They can't possibly do that. That's too much paper money to keep in the bank. So when people go and they drain the bank of all the money that's in there, the banks have to close. If nobody's putting money in banks, the banks have to close. So we're going to see in 1929, 659 banks close initially, and then in 1932, 5,102 banks are going to be out of business. The reason for all of this is the unregulated banking practices. That idea that the banks could give loans to anybody for anything at any time. And the panic of the people that causes them to withdraw all of their money at once. These banks need help. So Congress, with the guidance of FDR, passes the Emergency Banking Relief Act. First, what this does is it gives the president a little bit more powers. The people are ready to hand over power to the federal government at this time. The states cannot fix this one state by one state by one state. It had to be the entire country all on the same side. So FDR gets a little bit more power, and what he does is close all of the banks. He puts them on a bank holiday. The reason he does this is so that they can get their stuff together. This allows time for the banks to organize their accounts, to get ready to give people money, to lend people money, set regulations up for what lending money during this time looks like. So it helps reorganize the banks before they open. This is going to set the tone of FDR's presidency and contrast it with Hoover's presidency. Day one, FDR is coming in and taking action, where Hoover, throughout his entire presidency, did not. He let this problem get worse over the years of Hoover's presidency, and in one day, FDR hits the ground running, ready to fix these problems. Now, before we move on, I want you to watch a little clip about FDR's banking policies.
On Inauguration Day, the new president offered hope to a desperate people.
Well, first of all, let me assert my firm belief that the only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
He had promised Americans a New Deal. Now he began to construct it.
On his first full day in office, FDR confronted his greatest challenge, the banking crisis that threatened to destroy America's economy. Roosevelt began with a decisive act. Declaring a bank holiday, he temporarily closed all the nation's banks. Then, he called Congress into special session to pass emergency banking legislation to protect bank depositors and curb risky banking practices.
Treasury officials feverishly began work on the Emergency Banking Act. Rushed to Congress 4 days later, it was approved within hours. The act gave the government authority to examine bank finances, provide needed capital, and determine which banks were fit to reopen. The healthy banks were authorized to reopen on March 13th, the night before FDR went on nationwide radio to reassure Americans. His appeal worked.
The following morning, when the banks reopened, depositors lined up to return their money. The banking crisis was over.
We have provided the machinery to restore our financial system, and it is up to you to support and make it work. It is your problem, my friend. Your problem no less than it is mine. Together, we cannot fail.
Notice the message from FDR there. We are in this together. Together we cannot fail. If all of us are trying, if all of us buy into this, we all will fix the problem for the whole country. And that carries right through. So the next part of relief was to tackle the other largest problem that the country has. We're providing immediate relief here. The other biggest problem following the banks was, how do we employ all of the people that have been unemployed because of that overproduction, that underconsumption? Everybody got laid off, businesses had to cut wages. How do we fix that? FDR says, well, let's give the people jobs. And he starts with the Public Works Administration. Now, we are going to have a lot of abbreviations for all of the programs that FDR puts into place, and this one is called the PWA, and he passes it in 1933. What this does is it awards construction contracts to large-scale public works projects. What does that mean? It means that construction workers are getting huge projects given to them so that they can go out and work. They are going to build bridges, dams, irrigation systems, sewers, roads. We are trying to provide jobs for skilled workers with this program. And the goal of all of this is to jumpstart the economy, put money in the hands of the people while we're improving the nation's infrastructure. So it works double. We're getting people jobs, we're improving the country, and giving some jobs to those who had been unemployed. Then we see the Works Progress Administration. So with the PWA, the Public Works Administration, that first program that's passed, I want you to notice that we are giving let me see if I can get this to work. We are giving the skilled workers jobs. But now we have to focus on the other half of the people that are unemployed. So with the Works Progress Administration, known as the WPA, we're going to give 9 million jobs to people that have all skill levels. So you could be a skilled worker, you could be an unskilled worker. Anybody who needs a job could fall into this category of the Works Progress Administration. So we have skilled workers, and now we're providing for all skilled levels. And what's really cool here is these were public works and artistic projects. So we're building parks, we're painting murals, we're looking into the arts. The second category really was about providing a little bit of joy, a different kind of job versus the infrastructure we were building with the Public Works Administration. The next part of relief is the Civilian Conservation Corps, known as the CCC. This is going to give 2 million jobs to unemployed, unmarried men. Now, why are we focusing on unmarried men in the age group of 17 to 25? Well, these men we could take out of their homes, put them in the countryside, and have them work on jobs like building reservoirs, bridges, making fire lanes in forests, planting trees. We're going to dig ponds. We're going to clear lands for campsites. These jobs had to be done away from home, anywhere around the country. And the way that we were going to get people to buy into that is send us your young, strong men who aren't married, that don't have families that they're worried about. Send them here. They can live. They'll make $30 a month, which is a pretty good salary, and they can send that right back to their family. So what we're doing here, the goal here, is we're taking youth out of the streets. We're giving them jobs, we're giving them pay that they can send back home to their families who can spend it, and we're giving them room and board. So these guys, while they were working, they're not paying for anything. They're being housed, they're being fed, and they're working. All the money they're making can be sent back to their families, and their families can be the ones to spend it. Now I have one more video for you guys to watch, and then we are going to call it quits for this section. Maybe if I can find, there it is. One more video, quick video, and then we'll call it quits for the day.
Our greatest primary task is to put people to work.
When FDR took office, 1 out of 4 workers was without a job. Another 1 in 4 could only find part-time work. He moved immediately to put people back to work by launching the largest public works program in American history, directing billions of federal dollars to fund work relief for the unemployed.
His goal was to provide immediate assistance to the unemployed and to increase their purchasing power so they could buy more goods and services and help boost the nation's economy. From 1933 to 1935, FDR created new agencies like the Civilian Conservation Corps, the CCC, the Public Works Administration, the PWA, and the Works Progress Administration, the WPA.
The Civilian Conservation Corps put young men ages 17 to 24, many from urban areas, to work on conservation projects in healthy rural environments. During its 9-year existence, the CCC employed nearly 3 million men. They planted over 2 billion trees, fought forest fires, built trails, campgrounds, and reservoirs, and aided with soil conservation programs. It became one of the New Deal's most popular and successful programs. Its legacy remains today in facilities it constructed throughout America's national forests and parks.
The Public Works Administration, PWA, contracted with private construction companies to put additional people to work, while the Works Progress Administration, WPA, hired the unemployed directly. It was the largest public works initiative in American history, employing 3.3 million people at its height. WPA workers built thousands of roads, bridges, tunnels, parks, airports, schools, courthouses, post offices, and other public buildings. Agency artists created nearly 500,000 works of public art and brought theater, literature, oral histories, music, and dance to communities around the nation. Together, these agencies helped millions of families survive during the bleakest years of the Great Depression.
This is a great national crusade, a crusade to destroy enforced idleness, which is an enemy of the human spirit generated by this depression.
So you can see those public programs really did provide some relief to the people, giving them money, putting money in the hands of families so that they can go out and spend, because ultimately that was the goal. Don't forget the documents that go with this are documents 7, 5, and 7, and that's going to be from the 1930s documents. And as always, any questions, you let me know.